Fauci. Thanks for being with us. The particular thing that sets Senator Paul apart from many others who've attacked you is that he actually graduated from medical school. He's a medical doctor, which I find remarkable. How do you square that with what is coming out of his mouth? Because, you know, you said what we're all here for today, talking about the panel in front of you, clearly what he is there for, and many of those are there for, as are many public hearings, is to make sound bites that get attention and, again, spur donations on his website.
That is true, Anderson, and it really is unfortunate. I mean, putting me aside with all the ad hominems and the things that you showed on that film, the hearing was a very important hearing. And there was a lot of good faith, even though there was disagreement, political and other disagreement, on both sides of the aisle. I mean, Senator Murray and Senator Burr really wanted to get down to the bottom of some of the things that we can improve on. So, I mean, even the Republican senators were asking good, tough questions, and we should be having to respond to tough questions. And yet, the only thing that came out of Senator Rand Paul and, to some extent, Senator Roger Marshall were ad hominems, which does nothing but distract from what we really need to be doing. We have a pandemic that everyone knows right now is like a tsunami on us. We're going to have close to 1 million people a day getting infected, and we have close to 1 million people who are going to die, 850,000 people dying. And instead of using it in a constructive manner, they're distracting it with things that are patently untrue. So I can't explain that, Anderson, except what I brought up at the hearing, that it clearly is politically motivated. He's raising money for his campaign by making me the villain. He calls me a polarizing figure. Well, if you call me a murderer and say I'm responsible for ridiculous, preposterous, slanderous statements, responsible for the deaths of 5 million people, doing this and doing that, it's not me that's making myself polarizing, it's him. The only thing I'm trying to do is what you look on the record of everything I've ever said, getting people to get vaccinated, to get boosted, to wear masks, to abide by the CDC recommendations. That should not be polarizing, Anderson. That's just public health. He's making me polarized by saying things about me that are completely untrue.
There, you know, in courtrooms, lawyers aren't supposed to ask a question of a defendant that they don't already know the answer to. That's a lesson that one senator clearly has not learned. Senator Roger Marshall said something to you today, and I just want to play this for viewers because, it was one of those things I found kind of stunning.
As the highest paid employee in the entire federal government, yes or no, would you be willing to submit to Congress and the public a financial disclosure that includes your past and current investments?
I don't understand why you're asking me that question. My financial disclosure is public knowledge and has been so for the last 37 years or so, 35 years that I've been director.
The big tech, where would we find it?
All you have to do is ask for it. You're so misinformed, it's extraordinary.
Why we look forward to reviewing it.
Senator Marshall, Dr. Fauci has answered you. It is public information, and he's happy to give it to you if you would ask. Senator Moran.
What a moron. Jesus Christ.
Okay. So let me just tell you, just as someone who exists on television, I can tell you someone wrote that question for him. And the way I know this is because he's looking down at his piece of paper, just reading this question that has clearly been written for him. Someone has made, unfortunately, a large, giant check, and he thought this was going to be this big kind of, you know, extraordinary reveal. That's what whoever prepared that question for him had told him. And then when you answered it, he didn't know what to do because there was no follow-up for him, and he was unaware that that's public information, and then it just went downhill from there. That wasn't even about science. I mean, how difficult is it to address the actual pandemic when it's these kind of questions being asked at a hearing, obviously with great setup, and this is what his staff has been preparing him to ask?
Well, that's the whole point, Anderson, which I said. It was so counterproductive to what the intent of the hearing is. The hearing is we're dealing with a catastrophic pandemic that has already killed over 850,000 Americans. And there was good faith on both sides of the aisle, and many of the Republicans and the Democrats, of course. And it was led by, in a bipartisan way by Senator Burr and Senator Murray. And yet the only thing he had in mind was ad hominem, which I think that's the real issue here. Forget about attacking me. I've been there. I've been around the block. But what a terrible time to be distracting from what we really should be doing.